Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sportster. I'm Denise Salcedo, and I'm very excited to introduce to you my guest for today. My guest for today has wrestled for every major wrestling promotion across the globe. He is a former two-time IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champion, former PWG World Champion, former Ring of Honor World Champion, five-time TNA World Tag Team Champion, Major League Wrestling's very own Davey Richards. What's up, Davey?
Hey, thanks for having me.
No, I'm very excited to talk to you. Right now it's kind of, reading off a very small list of all of your accomplishments that you have done throughout wrestling. So just to kind of be able to have this time with you is very exciting.
Well, thank you very much.
So let's kind of jump in right into things. So, when you were, in 2017, when you decided to step away from professional wrestling, you can say that it was a very different world, so to say. The landscape of professional wrestling was very different to what it is right now, 2021. You're back in professional wrestling, doing stuff with MLW. But before we get to the MLW portion of things, I kind of want to get inside your head and find out what it was that made you return back to professional wrestling.
Cobra Kai.
With the Netflix series.
Yeah. So I just I left to one, be a dad, but two, pursue medical school. And both of those, were going great and very fulfilling. And there was still just something missing, something like a piece of me was missing, and yeah, I don't know. I didn't want to make too much of a big deal, but it just happenstance. I was watching the Cobra Kai, and there's like this scene that Johnny's watching Iron Eagle, and it says, "God doesn't give people things He doesn't want them to use," and I just clicked with me, and I was like, "It's just time to go back," and I just hit the ground running.
I got to tell you, out of all the answers that I was expecting, I don't think I was expecting Cobra Kai whatsoever. But that's really great because I think there's little things that happen in life that sometimes end up kind of hitting you and inspiring you in a different sort of way. So I actually think that's really awesome.
Yeah,
So,
it was cool.
Oh, sorry, go for it. Oh, yes. So okay, so you mentioned Cobra Kai and all of that, and that getting you back into professional wrestling. But during this time period, when you're pursuing, this career, you're also being a father, etc. Were you still keeping up with the product? No, nothing at all.
No, I read this really good, not quote, but an interview with Mike Tyson, and they say like Mike Tyson doesn't work out anymore at all because he's scared if he works out, he'll start, getting that ego back, like, oh, I'm a bad mother effer, I could go and do this. So I knew that wrestling has been such a massive part of my life since I was 10 years old that if I was to watch it, pay attention to it, even dabble in it, or give it any energy whatsoever, I would want to go back. And at that time, I needed to focus on other things. So no, I completely, just turned it off from my mind, from my life, and my wife, who I met right after I stopped, she had no idea. She knew that I wrestled, but didn't know everything that I'd done. I didn't talk about it very much, and because I didn't want to get that itch because I had to focus on something else, and I just don't believe in doing things 50%. If I'm in, I'm all in. So it was just worked out that it was time to go back, and because I could go all in again.
See, that's incredible to me because obviously, throughout your time in professional wrestling, you obviously you've formed a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships. So to kind of really try to distance yourself from that, was it difficult to do?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It was identity. The biggest part of it was identity because, wrestling, I've always, I never played a wrestler on TV. I am a wrestler, it's why my ears look the way they do. And, since I was 10 years old, first walking onto the amateur mats, so a big part of it was identity, and it was struggling to kind of find my identity again. And I don't think I ever really did that until, I went back to wrestling. It's like, oh, I'm me again.
See, and that's interesting to me because if you know, stepping away from it and then kind of like distancing yourself from it. And like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a different world right now. So, kind of like jumping back into professional wrestling, obviously, right now with MLW, but on top of that, you have all of this other stuff that's going on in the wrestling world. You have, this competition amongst promotions, and then you also have, the forbidden door, and you have all of these different talents bringing in different types of styles of wrestling. So, for you, as somebody who has known the business for such a long time, what were some of the things that you would say were maybe some of the major differences that you noticed from when you were last here to, coming back, whether it be amongst, the business in general, the talents, the promoters, the promotions, etc.?
I would say there's definitely more of working together. People understand that. I think the pandemic opened a lot of people's eyes to the gift we have that is professional wrestling and just how petty some of the doors, rivalries, whatever were. I mean, competition is good. I thrive off competition. I mean, like that's why, I've always said pro wrestling is a sport because it is competitive. If you honestly think I'm not going out there to, put everyone else to shame on the card by having the best match, you're out of your mind.
Exactly.
And that's good. That's what, I've always said, if you're a paying fan, if I go to pay to see a concert, I want to see people on stage. I think they're the absolutely best at what they do. I never want to go pay to see a concert where the guys walk out on stage, just go, man, we suck. I don't know why we're even here. So competition is good. And I think we can be competitive but still work together instead of working against each other because we're all in this together. The cool thing about wrestling is if you get it, there's no explanation needed. But if you don't get it, no explanation will do. So it's like this subculture that we're just all a part of, and we can go and be ourselves and go and and cheer and boo, but we're all inevitably in this together. So that was one big difference. Two, I am really happy to say just the resurgence of just pure technical wrestling is, thank God. So those are the two big things. And I think there's a lot of I think pro wrestling is a lot more respected now. I mean, you see people from all different walks of life, different sports jumping into this, and and everyone has the same thing. Like, man, I had no idea this would be so hard. And it's like, yeah, it's a sport, man. It's an acquired skill. So I think there's a lot of positives. I mean, the pandemic, it sucked, what I mean? But I think a lot of good came out of it in wrestling and real life. And just because people realize, like, man, we took some things for granted.
I agree. I think we definitely did. It's kind of one of those things when you kind of take something away from you, don't realize how much it meant to you until it's gone. And now I do want to touch back on the fact that, when you took a break from professional wrestling, obviously you were living an entirely different life, doing, the paramedic work, the medical school and all of that. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did during that time period and kind of paint us a picture of how different your life was?
Yeah, it was pretty different. I'm always adrenaline junkie. I'm always finding some way to royally screw myself up. So I spent my time. I was a full-time firefighter, paramedic. I was also a flight paramedic. So I run into burning buildings. Working, flying in helicopters. Also, I got married.
Congratulations.
Yep. I got a girl. She's something special. And spent a lot of time in the classroom, and pursuing this medical degree and being a dad, that was really important. I didn't have a dad growing up, so that was really important. And I was very busy. I've always kept myself busy, and then I always kept training. I had a couple nagging injuries, that I had to kind of get through. But I mean, no one wrestles for 20 years and doesn't have injuries, and mine thankfully weren't that severe. So it was just pursuing different things I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be a firefighter. I always wanted to be a paramedic, and and I always wanted to be a dad. So I got to do all those things. And then now that I've done those things and things are much more, I guess, settled, then it's time to go back to my calling in life, which is wrestling.
See, so are you now doing both things? Are you juggling both worlds, or are you just like completely shifting into wrestling now?
No, I'm still a paramedic.
Oh, okay. So how do you like sort of, find a balance between those two worlds? Because I mean, like on one side, you're saving life, and then on the other side, you're entertaining lives. It's very different.
Yeah, they so well, like for example, like last weekend I wrestled in Mississippi on Friday and in Dallas on Saturday. I drove back and worked on the ambulance overnight Sunday, class back on Monday. And that's kind of my life. It's all I really know. So I mean, I've I'd be wrestling one night and treating gunshot victims the next night. It's just kind of like it's just it's I love it though. I mean, I can't even call it work because I love it. I love I'm very so I can't remember who said it, but someone said the only problem with Davey, he was born 400 years too late because I belong on like a battlefield swinging an axe. You know what I mean? Just because I'm very comfortable in that like, oh crap, adrenaline pumping environment, whether it be wrestling in front of how many people or treating cardiac arrest, in the middle of the night, flying down the highway. You know what I mean? So like that's just kind of me. You know what I mean? So I love it.
So, you mentioned this being an adrenaline junkie, whether it be, when you're doing your pro wrestling job, when you're working as a paramedic. So, can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the biggest, I don't want to say challenges, but maybe some of like the most adrenaline moments that you've had, whether it was like training to become a paramedic or like even on the job as a paramedic?
My first fire.
How
Yeah.
was that?
So I had been in the service, oh God, maybe 2 months. And it was like 2 a.m. and with the, the alarms went off and we jumped in, and suited up and got my gear on. And a lot of these times you go and they're like false alarms, so I'm still half asleep. And my captain looks back and he's like, "You ready for this, kid?" And we go over the hill and you just see the flames blowing. And I'm just like, it was like, I'm like, oh shit, this is really going to happen. Like, I'm really going to go to this burning building and look for people and put this fire out. And so we get there and he's like, grab a ladder, go up to the roof, grab a chainsaw, cut a hole in the roof. And I had a really good guy, Danny Miner, really leading the way. And so we're climbing this, was a big 2-story house. And, we cut the hole in the roof and the flames just fly up. And I never experienced heat like that in my life. And he's like, "You ready to go in?" I'm like, "Yes." And then you go in there and that heat just pins you down. You know what I mean? And you're searching for victims. You can't see anything. And it's just so hot. And, and you hear about a lot of people that die like that because they run out of air. So I'm trying to like conserve my breathing and then looking for victims and stuff. And then finally we find the hose and we actually got to put the fire out. And it felt like 2 hours. Really, it was maybe 6-7 minutes, but it was just, so that was a big one I'll never forget. And, another big one was, we found a guy hanging and we got him down. And then after we got him resuscitated, he went into cardiac arrest and we got him back again. And we got an award for that. That was pretty cool. And, graduating college, with honors, that was a big deal. Yeah, just, but the biggest thing is, being a good dad, being a good dad, that was the best, just seeing him grow up is just, I can't even, I don't have the words to, accurately define it, but, those have been the big moments. So, I've just been doing other things, so it's been cool.
No, and that's the cool thing too, is that I feel like you're getting like all of these different types of aspects that life has to offer. And like right now, like you're painting this visual of going into a fire. And I'm thinking like, we all know what firefighters do, right? But hearing the firsthand experience, it's like you got to really be a certain type of character, like a certain type of person to have the courage to go in there and, really you do these things.
Yeah, it was, you train for it, but when it's there and it's hard to explain. I wish I could find the words to describe it. It's just that I've never felt heat like that. And it was, but anyways, I'm here. So obviously it turned out decent.
Exactly. So now I'm going to shift my way back into professional wrestling and kind of get into that because, here's the thing is that you signed with MLW. I know the announcement was made in May, but also you've had a very decorated career in Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling. So I am curious, why did you decide to choose MLW again? given the fact that you've done a lot with, other promotions like Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling, etc.?
With Ring of Honor, I've done everything there is to do there. I always looked at my career and my life as like a journey. I never cared about fame. I'm not worried about that. So to me, it was like, where is the challenge? Impact Wrestling, they treated me very well. I got nothing bad to say about them, but I don't think they knew how to use me, and I didn't know how to be what they wanted. I'm not and again, I'm not trying to badmouth them. They were absolutely great. Like they were wonderful. They treated me well. They were honest. I had nothing bad to say about them whatsoever, but I'm not a TV wrestler. I don't like wrestling 5 minutes. I at the least I like to wrestle is 15, 20 minutes. So that's, and on television, that's pretty arrogant to go in there and be like, well, I need 20 minutes every time. It's like, well, baby show, So, and so that's just not a good environment for me to be in anymore. Again, like I said before, I've always said and considered wrestling a sport, and MLW was very organic. It was the way they perceive wrestling, how they want to present it is very in line with the way I think it should be. So, I'll be there for the next few years at least.
That's incredible. And that's the thing too, is that, MLW, they really have a very nice variety of different talents on their roster. What are your thoughts, on the roster and the current talents that they have? And I also want to get your experience working with Court Bauer. What's that been like as well?
He was in Ring of Honor a little bit when I was there. But recently we've only really been working together, and he's just, of course I'm going to say nice things. He's my boss, but Court is really, Court is part of the team, not above the team. I've definitely worked in promotions where, your ideas were kind of going to fall on deaf ears, and there was a space between the talent and the office. In MLW, he's very open to ideas, and he's very, he wants to know what you're thinking, and that's the best way to present someone. Is like, well, what are you thinking? Okay, well, this is my vision of you. Let's find the middle ground. So it really feels like a team environment. We're not just a company, we're a team. And that's why Ring of Honor used to film when I was there, and I think that's a really important thing. But the roster is just, the Opera Cup speaks for itself, man.
Yes.
It's absolutely amazing. When I came in, my first match was TJP. I was like, oh, I'm good. Like, this is great, dude. Cause that guy is one of the few elites in wrestling. And then, it's such a, Alex Hammerstone put out this tweet the other day where he's like, the cool thing about the Opera Cup is I get to go have my match with Fatu and watch the rest of the show. And I was literally typing the same tweet. I was like, I get to go have my match with Lawler, then I just get to watch the rest of the show, Bobby Fish versus Lee Moriarty, and then, Fatu and Hammerstone. Like, so it's a pretty cool thing for me to, the 4-way with Tajiri and Myron Reed. That's going to be awesome. It's just hitting home runs, man.
I think if we learned anything in wrestling, like even just this past year, is that, essentially talent is a lot happier when they have the opportunity, like you mentioned, not feeling necessarily this gap between like corporate office and the talent. So it does make a lot of sense as to, why you selected MLW. So, let's talk about that Opera Cup, because you mentioned, the fact that some of the talents that we have in here, but let's, you have yourself, you have Bobby Fish, Alex Shelley, Matt Cross, TJP, Tom Lawler, Lee Moriarty, Calvin Tankman. All of those names, not like, it's crazy. How do you feel about, kind of being in there, having all those competitors take part in this Opera Cup?
It's what professional wrestling should be. It should be, it should be the kind of tournament where you don't know, these guys are so evenly matched. This could go either way. There's some tournaments, in anything, sports, wrestling, baseball, whatever, where it's kind of like, it's so lopsided, it's like, okay, here we go, and like, whereas and there's not a lot of drama in that, and what I really like about MLW, and this is very organic, is that everyone there has something to prove, and you're never going to see a storyline on that, but like, wrestling's a very personal thing, whether people want to it or not. And for someone like me, like I want to prove that I'm still the best in the world. Like that's what I'm there to do. I think TJP wants to prove that he's still one of the elites in the world. I think Calvin Tankman wants to prove that, hey man, like I'm the new guy on the block. You better pay attention. Bobby Fish wants to prove that, hey, those guys made a mistake letting me go. Lawler wants to prove that, like, hey, I'm not just a mixed martial arts, I'm a professional wrestler. So like you have these things, these people have these. Of course, we want to win this shiny cup in this tournament. But the bigger thing for any athlete, you got to be able to look in the mirror and say, I am. And what that is only relative to that person, whether it's I am the best, I am worth it, or I am the champion. But you have to look in that mirror and say, I am. And I think everyone comes into this tournament with that motivation. And I think MLW as a whole, has that I am mentality where, we are to be noticed. We are the big leagues. We are the elite. We are at the top of the mountain. So it's extremely motivated, both externally and intrinsically.
I think it drives you to do your very best work. And when you have all of those people that you said have something to prove, it just drives it like that much better and makes things so much better. That's really, really awesome. So now let's talk about October 2nd, Fightland in Philadelphia. You're taking on Filthy Tom Lawler in the opening round bout of the Opera Cup. And he is the 2020 Opera Cup winner. So what are your thoughts heading into this match with Filthy Tom?
He may be the only wrestler alive uglier than me. If me and him were to go out on the town, we would not get much dates. Thank God we're both married. So you really have to feel sorry for our wives. Tom is it's funny that my really good buddy Tony Gazzina put it best. It's always the guys that could break in half, or always seem to be the nicest. Tom is legit in every sense of the word. I mean, his mixed martial arts career speaks for itself. But I'm more talking about his professional wrestling career. I mean, Tom is one of the few people that has transitioned from mixed martial arts into professional wrestling and done both with just excellence. He's entertaining. He's obviously athletic, and he's a ring general, so I have nothing but respect for him. We've actually wrestled one time a while ago in Oregon. I remember going into the match being like, oh, dude, these guys are crossing over. Oh, this is going to be open. And I was just like, are you sure you've just been doing this for a little bit? And yeah, he's absolutely awesome. So, and he's the winner, and people talk about him and hold him in high esteem for a very good reason. So I look forward to the challenge. And I mean, you're not going to have a challenge in this tournament, but what a great way to start it out. So I look forward to it, man. I really do. He's an absolutely incredible competitor, and I want the best.
Amazing. Amazing. So now I'm going to go ahead and ask you my last question for today. And that is, obviously you're just getting started with MLW. You're just getting, back into professional wrestling once again. So with that being said, what are your goals within MLW, short-term, long-term, and then also some of your short, long-term goals within professional wrestling?
For me, it's just, I want to be the best professional wrestler alive, MLW, I feel, is a place to showcase that desire. I know I'll be given challenges, and it's up to me to either sink or swim. So, but I won the Super 8 tournament. I won the Battle of Los Angeles. That Opera Cup would look real good next to those two titles. So I'm looking to win it.
It really would. Davey, before we go, please feel free to plug in any social media handles or anything you'd like to plug in before we wrap up this interview.
I'm just on Twitter at Richards Wesley. My real name is Wesley Richards. Come give me a follow, and you can see both my stuff with wrestling and my struggles with modern technology.
That's awesome. Davey, I had a great time chatting with you here today. I actually wanted to mention this to you off the air or before the show, but I kind of completely forgot to mention it to you. But, I've been watching you since your days in PWG, and to kind of I think you're really one of those guys that I feel kind of, I don't know how to say it, but kind of taught me what good wrestling is, because once you see it, you're like, oh man, that's pretty awesome. And, made me fall in love with the independent wrestling world, that much more. more. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you for that. Thank you for this interview. Guys, before we go, I am going to put all of the links where you guys can check out MLW's product, where you guys can follow Davey on Twitter, and all of that will be posted in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more interviews just like this one. Goodbye, everybody.